prairie had never felt so cruelly silent. Caleb Hart stood outside his weather-beaten cabin as the sun sank behind the endless Wild West horizon, painting the sky in dying shades of red and gold. For 3 days his dog Ranger had been gone, and with him the last living presence that gave the lonely cowboy a reason to wake each morning. Ranger wasn't just a companion. He was a piece of Caleb's soul, a silent witness to years of loss, hard labor, and nights spent talking to the stars like they could answer back. Caleb had searched until his boots bled. He followed paw prints across dry earth, through thorny brush and broken stone, even toward the distant red hills everyone warned him about, Apache land. Sensible men didn't wander there alone, but grief made a man reckless. When the tracks vanished near a rocky ravine, hope drained out of him like water from cracked ground. By the third night, Caleb sat by a weak fire, staring into the flames, whispering Ranger's name as if the wind might carry it to him. Just as despair settled heavy on his chest, a sound cut through the darkness. A low howl drifted across the plain, thin but unmistakable. Caleb shot to his feet, heart pounding, rifle forgotten at his side. The howl came again, closer this time, followed by the soft patting of paws. Ranger emerged from the shadows, ribs showing, fur matted with dust, eyes still loyal and bright. Caleb dropped to his knees, pulling the dog into his arms, his rough hands shaking as relief broke through days of silent suffering. Then Ranger stepped back and turned, tail wagging once, urging Caleb to look beyond him. A woman stumbled forward from the dark. She was exhausted, barely standing, her clothes torn and stained by travel and sorrow. Before Caleb could speak, she collapsed onto the hard earth. He caught her instinctively, lowering her beside the fire. Her skin was warm with fever, her breathing shallow. Ranger lay beside her, pressing close as if guarding something precious. Caleb worked through the night, giving her water, wrapping her in a spare blanket, watching the firelight dance across her face. She was Apache, that much was clear, and alone. Whoever she was, the dog hadn't left. He had returned for a reason. As dawn broke over the prairie, Caleb realized his life had already changed. The silence he feared was gone, replaced by a fate that had followed his dog home. Morning light crept through the cracks of Caleb Hart's cabin, thin and pale, carrying the smell of dust and smoke. The woman slept on his narrow bed, her breathing slow but steady now, while Ranger lay curled at her feet like a silent guard. Caleb sat nearby, hat in his hands, watching her as if she might vanish the moment he looked away. He had seen many things in his years on the frontier: violence, greed, death, but nothing had prepared him for the weight of responsibility that had entered his home with the sunrise. When her eyes finally opened, fear flashed across her face. She tried to rise, but her strength failed her. Caleb gently motioned for her to stay still, offering a tin cup of water. She hesitated, then drank, studying him with caution and curiosity. Words were useless at first. They shared no common language, only gestures and expressions. She pressed a hand to her chest and spoke her name softly, Naya. The way she said it carried sorrow, like a prayer already half broken. Over the next hours, understanding came in fragments. Through signs, broken words, and long silences, Caleb learned she was a widow. Her husband had died in a violent clash not far from the Red Hills. Fleeing the aftermath, she had become lost, wandering for days without food or water. When her legs gave out near a dry riverbed, she was ready to surrender to the land. That was when Ranger appeared, barking until she followed, refusing to abandon her even when night fell and wolves howled nearby. As Naya's strength slowly returned, tension grew inside Caleb. He knew what it meant to shelter an Apache woman. Trouble never traveled alone on the frontier. Ranger healed too, the wound on his leg slowly closing. But scouts could be watching. Tracks being read, questions forming. Each distant sound made Caleb reach for his rifle, though he prayed he would never need it. Naya sensed his unease. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she stepped outside the cabin and stared toward the distant hills. Her posture changed, shoulders tightening, eyes darkening with memory. She spoke in a rush of Apache words Caleb couldn't understand, but he understood the fear beneath them. Her people would search for her, and according to sacred law, a life saved was a bond forged, one that could not be ignored. That night the air felt heavy, charged with what was coming. Two lost souls and one loyal dog sat around a small fire, bound together by fate neither had chosen. The Wild West had a way of deciding things for men and women alike, and it was clear this story was far from over. The sound of hooves broke the quiet just after sunrise. Caleb Hart knew it before he saw them. The land itself seemed to tense, the wind carrying warning across the plain. Ranger growled low, standing between the cabin and the open prairie, while Naya stepped outside, her face calm but resolute. In the distance, figures emerged through the dust, Apache riders moving with purpose, their silhouettes sharp against the rising sun. Caleb's hand rested on his rifle, though he kept the barrel lowered. He had no desire to spill blood, but he would not run either. When the riders stopped, an elder dismounted and studied the scene with dark, assessing eyes. Words were exchanged in Apache, fast and firm. Naya answered them, her voice steady, though emotion flickered beneath her strength. She spoke of loss, of wandering, of the moment when death felt close enough to touch. Then she pointed to Ranger, explaining how the dog had saved her, and to Caleb, who had given her shelter, water, and life when there was nothing left. The elder listened without interruption. When Naya finished, silence settled heavy as stone. Finally, the elder spoke again, slower this time. Naya turned to Caleb, translating as best she could with gestures and broken English. By sacred law, the one who saved her life was bound to her fate. Not ownership, not chains, but responsibility, protection, and choice. The law did not command love, but it demanded respect for the bond. Caleb shook his head, stepping forward. He tried to refuse, his voice rough, explaining he had never meant to claim anything, least of all a person. The elder watched him closely, as if measuring his soul more than his words. Then Naya spoke again, her gaze never leaving Caleb's face. She said the law allowed one final thing, her own decision. The wind stirred as she made her choice. Naya stayed, not because of sacred rules or tribal demands, but because in a land ruled by cruelty, Caleb had shown kindness when he owed her nothing. Ranger wagged his tail once as if sealing the moment. The riders mounted their horses and departed, leaving dust and silence behind. As the sun climbed higher, Caleb and Naya stood side by side, unsure of what the future held. But the loneliness that once haunted the cabin was gone. In the vast, unforgiving Wild West, fate had returned a dog and delivered. Two broken lives, a reason to move forward together.